The air in the studio was electric, thick with anticipation. The view's set gleamed under the bright lights, its iconic round table surrounded by 5 women whose voices carried the weight of a nation's attention. Joy Behar leaned forward, her sharp wit ready to cut through the noise. Whoopi Goldberg sat back, her calm demeanor masking the storm she could unleash at any moment. Sunny Hostin adjusted her glasses, poised to deliver a legal jab. Alyssa Farah Griffin, the newest face, fidgeted slightly, sensing the tension. And then there was Representative Jasmine Crockett, the Texas firebrand, her presence commanding the room like a lightning bolt waiting to strike. The topic was hot: abortion rights, a powder keg in the post-Roe v. Wade era. The audience leaned in, their murmurs fading into a hush. Crockett's dark eyes scanned the panel, her lips curling into a knowing smile. She'd been here before, in rooms where words were weapons, and she wielded them like a master. But today, something was different. One sentence, one perfectly timed phrase, was about to set the stage ablaze. "Ladies," Crockett began, her voice smooth but laced with steel. "We're not just talking about laws here. We're talking about lives, real women, real pain, real choices." The panel nodded, but the air shifted. Joy raised an eyebrow, sensing a challenge. Whoopi tilted her head, intrigued. Crockett leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly as if holding back a tidal wave. "And let me tell you something," she continued, her tone dropping to a near whisper. "The people making these laws, they don't even understand the bodies they're trying to control." The studio erupted. Applause roared from the audience, but it wasn't just approval, it was hunger for more. Sunny Hostin jumped in, her voice rising. "That's the truth. These lawmakers are out here playing doctor without a degree." The crowd cheered, louder, but Crockett wasn't done. She raised a hand, silencing the room with a single gesture. "Hold on," she said, her eyes locking onto Alyssa, who'd been quiet, her conservative roots making her the odd one out. "I'm not here to preach. I'm here to ask, how do you defend a system that punishes women for existing?" Alyssa froze. The question wasn't just pointed. It was a blade, sharp and unforgiving. The audience gasped, the sound rippling through the studio like a shockwave. Alyssa opened her mouth, but no words came. The silence was deafening, and in that moment, Crockett's power was undeniable. She hadn't just asked a question, she'd exposed a fault line. Joy, never one to miss. A beat leapt into the fray. "Oh, honey, you stepped in it now," she cackled, pointing at Alyssa. The audience roared with laughter, but it was uneasy, like the kind that follows a punch you didn't see coming. Whoopi, sensing the chaos, tried to steer the ship. All right, let's keep it civil," she said, but her eyes sparkled with mischief. She knew this was gold. Crockett, though, wasn't here for civility. She leaned back, her smile dangerous now. Civil? Where was civil when they stripped away our rights? Where was civil when women were left bleeding in emergency rooms? The words hit like grenades, each one detonating in the hearts of the audience. A woman in the front row stood up, clapping furiously, tears streaming down her face. Others followed, a wave of emotion sweeping the room. But then it happened. The sentence that changed everything. Crockett turned to the camera, her gaze piercing. Through the lens, straight into the homes of millions. "If they want to control our bodies," she said, her voice low and deliberate, "then they better be ready to face the fire of every woman who's had enough." The studio fell silent for a split second, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Then, pandemonium. The audience leapt to their feet, shouting, clapping, some chanting her name. Joy slammed her hand on the table, yelling, "Preach!" Sunny was nodding so hard her glasses nearly fell off. Even Whoopi, the unflappable veteran, let out a slow, "Well, damn." Alyssa, still reeling, tried to recover. I think we need to focus on bipartisan solutions," she stammered, but her words were swallowed by the crowd's fervor. Crockett didn't even glance her way. She was already somewhere else, her mind racing ahead to the fallout she knew was coming. Backstage, producers scrambled. The control room was a war zone, with phones lighting up and executives barking orders. "Cut to commercial," one shouted, but the director shook her head. "No way! This is viral!" And she was right. The clip of Crockett's sentence was already spreading like wildfire, burning through the internet, igniting debates in living rooms and boardrooms alike. But the story didn't end there. As the show went to break, Crockett stayed seated, her expression unreadable. The other hosts exchanged glances, unsure whether to approach her. Joy, bold as ever, broke the silence. "Girl, you just blew up the internet," she said, half laughing, half awestruck. Crockett shrugged, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of satisfaction. "Good," she said simply. "Let it burn." When the show resumed, the energy was different, raw, unscripted, dangerous. Whoopi tried to pivot to a lighter topic, but the audience wasn't having it. They wanted more of Crockett, more of the truth she'd unleashed, and she delivered. For the next 10 minutes, she spoke with a clarity that cut through the noise of politics. She told stories of women she'd met in Texas, of families torn apart by draconian laws, of her own rage as a black woman navigating a system that seemed designed to break her. Each word was a spark, and the studio was dry tinder. Sunny, usually composed, was visibly emotional, wiping her eyes. Joy kept interjecting with quips, but even she couldn't hide her admiration. Alyssa, though, was struggling. She tried to push back, citing personal responsibility and legal precedent, but her arguments felt hollow against Crockett's raw passion. The audience booed, not out of malice, but out of frustration. They weren't here for platitudes. They wanted the fire. And then came the second bombshell. Crockett, responding to Alyssa's plea for calm dialogue, leaned forward, her voice dripping with defiance. "Calm. You want calm when women are dying? Tell you what, when they stop. Legislating my body, I'll start whispering." The crowd lost it. People were on their feet again, some shouting, "Amen," others just screaming in awe. Whoopi threw her hands up, laughing. "I give up. You're running the show now, Jasmine." Joy was practically bouncing in her seat, chanting, "Say it again!" Even Sunny, the voice of reason, was clapping like she was at a revival. But beneath the chaos, something deeper was happening. Crockett wasn't just speaking, she was shifting the narrative. Her words weren't just sound bites, they were a call to arms. Women in the audience were nodding, some clutching each other's hands, others texting furiously, spreading her message to the world. As the segment ended, the producers finally cut to commercial, but the damage, or the miracle, depending on who you asked, was done. Crockett stood, smoothing her blazer, and walked off the set with the calm of a general who'd just won a battle. The other hosts watched her go, a mix of awe and unease in their eyes. They knew this was bigger than one episode, bigger than The View itself. In the green room, Crockett sat alone for a moment, her phone buzzing nonstop. She didn't check it. Instead, she closed her eyes, letting the weight of the moment settle. She'd known what she was doing when she walked onto that set. She'd known the risks, the backlash that would come from pundits and politicians alike, but she also knew the power of a single sentence, perfectly placed, to change the game, and change it she had. By the time the show aired in full, her words were everywhere, quoted in headlines, debated on cable news, memed into oblivion. Some called her a hero, others a troublemaker, but no one could ignore her. The question now was, what next? Crockett wasn't naive. She knew the fire she'd started would burn hot and fast, but fires could also consume those who lit them. As she stepped out of the studio into the New York afternoon, the city buzzing around her, she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes, some cheering, some condemning. But she didn't flinch. She'd been forged in tougher flames than these, and somewhere in a small apartment in Texas, a young woman watched the clip of Crockett's speech on her phone, her hands trembling. She'd been silent for too long, afraid to speak out. But now, inspired by a single sentence, she felt something shift inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she could fight too. The spark had been lit. The chaos was just beginning. Jasmine Crockett stepped into the crisp New York air, the city's pulse thrumming around her. Taxis honked. Pedestrians hustled, but her mind was elsewhere, already calculating the next move. Her phone buzzed relentlessly in her pocket, a storm of notifications she wasn't ready to face. She knew what awaited. Praise from allies, venom from critics, and a flood of voices demanding she explain herself. But Jasmine didn't owe anyone an explanation. She'd spoken her truth, and the world was still reeling. As she walked toward her car, a young woman approached, her eyes wide with recognition. "Representative Crockett?" she said, her voice trembling. Jasmine paused, her guard up, but her smile warm. "That's me." The woman clutched her phone, the clip of Jasmine's speech still paused on the screen. "What you said today, it's like you were speaking for me, for all of us." Her voice cracked, and Jasmine's heart softened. She reached out, touching the woman's arm. "Keep fighting, sis," she said quietly. "We're just getting started." The encounter lingered in Jasmine's mind as she slid into the back seat of her car. It wasn't just about the studio anymore. It was about the people watching, the ones who'd felt invisible until her words gave them a voice. She leaned her head back, closing her eyes. The view had been a battlefield, but the war was far from over. Back in the studio, the hosts were still buzzing. Joy Behar, nursing a coffee in the green room, couldn't stop talking about it. "That woman's got guts," she said to Sunny, who was scrolling through her phone, reading the headlines. "Guts? She's a damn tornado," Sunny replied, shaking her head. "Did you see Alyssa's face? I thought she was going to melt into the floor." Whoopi, passing by, chuckled. "Let's be real. She knew what she was walking into. Jasmine's not here to play nice." But Alyssa wasn't laughing. Alone in her dressing room, she stared at her reflection, replaying the moment Jasmine's question had pinned her to the wall. She'd tried to recover, to sound reasonable, but the audience hadn't cared. They'd wanted blood, and Jasmine had delivered. Alyssa wasn't naive. She knew her conservative stance made her a target on a show like this. But she hadn't expected to feel so exposed. Her phone pinged with a text from a colleague. "You okay?" That was brutal. She didn't reply. Instead, she turned off her phone and took a deep breath. She'd have to face the cameras again tomorrow, but tonight, she just needed to regroup. Meanwhile, the ripple effects of Jasmine's words were spreading far beyond the studio. In a small diner in Austin, Texas, a group of women gathered around a laptop, watching the clip on repeat. "That's our girl," one said, her voice thick with pride. They weren't just fans. They were organizers, activists who'd been fighting for reproductive rights in a state that seemed determined to crush them. Jasmine's speech wasn't just inspiration, it was a rallying cry. "We need to get her down here," another said, already drafting an email. She could light a fire under this movement. In Washington, D.C., the reaction was less celebratory. In a dimly lit office, a group of strategists huddled around a conference table, their faces grim. "She's dangerous," one said, tossing a tablet onto the table, the headline screaming, "Crockett's fiery view appearance shakes up abortion debate." "She's not just talking, she's mobilizing." Another, older, leaned back in his chair. "Let her talk, she'll burn out, they always do." But even he didn't sound convinced. Jasmine wasn't like the others. She wasn't chasing clout or headlines. She was building something bigger. Jasmine, though, wasn't thinking about DC or strategists. Back in her hotel room, she finally checked her phone. The notifications were overwhelming. Thousands of messages from strangers and colleagues alike. Some called her a queen, others a traitor. A few threats made her pause, but she brushed them off. She'd faced worse. What caught her eye was a voicemail from her mother, her voice soft but proud. "Baby, you did it. You spoke for all of us." Jasmine smiled, her chest tightening. Her mother's words grounded her, reminding her why she'd stepped into the fire in the first place. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat by the window, the city skyline glittering below. Her mind drifted to the young woman from earlier, to the women in that Austin diner, to the countless others who'd heard her today. She'd always known words had power, but this was different. This was a spark that could ignite a revolution, or consume her if she wasn't careful. The next morning, the headlines were relentless. Crockett's bombshell on The View, a new voice for women's rights, Texas Rep leaves panel speechless. Is Jasmine Crockett the future of the Democratic Party? Pundits dissected her every word, some praising her courage, others accusing her of grandstanding. But Jasmine wasn't watching the news. She was already on a plane back to Texas, her mind focused on the work ahead. When she landed in Dallas, a small crowd was waiting at the airport, not protesters but supporters. Women, young and old, holding signs that read, "We're with Jasmine and keep speaking truth." She stopped, surprised, and for a moment, the exhaustion of the past 24 hours melted away. She spoke to them briefly, her voice steady but warm. "This isn't about me," she said. "This is about us, all of us." The crowd cheered, and as she walked away, she felt the weight of their hope settle on her shoulders. Back home, Jasmine sat at her kitchen table, a stack of constituent letters in front of her. The View was behind her now, but its impact lingered. She'd lit a fire, and fires didn't stop burning just because you walked away. She knew the road ahead would be brutal. More attacks, more threats, more attempts to silence her. But she also knew she wasn't alone. The women she'd spoken for, the ones who'd been ignored for too long, were waking up. And they were ready to fight. As she opened the first letter, her phone buzzed again. A text from Joy Behar. "You broke the damn show. Come back anytime." Jasmine laughed, shaking her head. Maybe she would. But for now, her fight was here, in the heart of Texas, where the stakes were higher and the battles fiercer. The spark she'd ignited on that stage wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. And Jasmine Crockett was ready to lead it, one fiery word at a time.